and welcome to today's Smokeball webinar, Starting a Law Firm, Tips and Traps. Great name from a multi-award winning principal lawyer. We're trying to give Amanda a big head today. And today the webinar is brought to you by myself, Jane Oxley. So I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Smokeball. And also, of course, I'm flicking through, Amanda Little. So Amanda is an accredited specialist in family law. She's a mediator, she's a speaker, she's also a fantastic entrepreneur and the perfect person, I think, to be talking with us today about the best way to get your law firm started. So welcome, Amanda.
Thanks, Jane. I'm very happy to be here today.
Awesome. Okay, so before we get started, what we thought we'd do today is just do one little poll to get an idea about who we've got on the call, so where you guys are all at in your starting a law firm or running a law firm journey. So we'll just get this poll going now. Oh. I think I'm doing something wrong. Oh, here we go. No, it's working. We'll give it a little bit more time. Lots of you have voted, which is great. Okay. Give it a couple more seconds, but looks like 54% of you have voted. Okay, perfect. I think we've got some good data here. So let's share the results. Okay, can you see them, Amanda?
Yes.
Am I doing something wrong?
No, perfect.
You can.
I can see them all. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so it looks like most of you are currently developing a law firm. So you're in the right place. And 25% currently considering starting a new law firm, which I think is going to be very helpful for us in what we talk about today.
It will, yeah. So that really helped me make sure that I provide the information that you guys are after. So I appreciate you answering that poll. Thank you.
Okay, let's get back into it. Okay, so we're going to go through quite a few different pieces today of how to get your law firm started. And Amanda is going to really provide a lot of the tips and traps that I think are going to be really, really helpful. So, Amanda, when we started talking about this presentation, there was one thing that really jumped out at me around business structures that you were talking about as a big trap. Well, it was
Yes.
a bit of a trap for you.
It was.
So I'd love it if we could.
Yeah, so and it's also been, I know lots of lawyers who've done the exact same thing and they all regret it immensely because once you're a few years into your practice, undoing it is almost impossible and it seems like a mammoth task. So one of the first things I always talk to people about when they're looking at going out into their own law firm is how you'll actually set it up legally. So generally a lot of people automatically go with this idea of being a sole trader. And then eventually, a few years in, we realised, wait a second, what I actually needed to be was an incorporated legal practice. And then transitioning from a sole trader to an incorporated legal practice is a really time-consuming and big deal. And so a lot of people I know, including myself, regret not being an incorporated legal practice from the very beginning. So
is it a whole lot of more hoops to jump through at the beginning?
There's a little bit, yeah, there's a little bit more to do, but not significantly more. So essentially when you're starting a practice, and most of you would have done your own research already as to this, when you notify the law society, the notification processes are the same. There's one or two little extra steps for an incorporated legal practice. Also, you have to set up your proprietary limited company through your accountant. But other than that, I wouldn't say it's a significant difference from the start. There's also really significant benefits from being an incorporated legal practice, like asset protection, which is not something that I really considered properly from the very beginning. And I did seek advice from an accountant, and unfortunately, I wish that I had sought advice from a different accountant. But the main thing is that, you know, if your intention is to grow, an incorporated legal practice as your preferred legalization to create the firm is definitely the better of the two options, mainly because, to give you an example, when you decide that you want to, for example, incorporate midway through a practice, once you've already established yourself, you need to issue, you need a new trust account, new bank accounts. You need to reassure your stuff to the Law Society, reissue cost agreements to existing clients. All of your packets need to be signed and authorized over to the proprietary limited holding. All of the different things that change, like you have to update your insurances, your law cover, everything. You basically rebuild a business from scratch to transfer from a sole trader to incorporated legal practice. So if you have any intention of adding employees and growing, my suggestion is that you seriously consider being an incorporated legal practice from the beginning.
I think that is probably worth the price of admission alone today.
Yeah,
so
you're welcome.
People are
take it from me, who had many tired, crying, sleepless nights trying to transition over. So I regretted it.
No, that is a really awesome tip and trap. Okay, so the basics. We're going to stick to the basics for a while.
We are, yes.
And how did you decide your areas of practice? How did you get going, Amanda?
So basically, for me, my area of practice was just set by what I was known for. So I'm a family lawyer, and that's what I was known for, and my name was known in my community for that purpose. So for me, I actually, when I was picking the niche for my firm and where I was going to fall into, the way I structured my target clients was to pick an area that I was known for, and that was my skill base. I know other people, when they start their law firm, they look at other things. So they might be starting a law firm so they can provide a certain quality of service, or they can provide a certain price point, as opposed to a niche area of practice. So I structured my firm and my branding around the idea of providing a particular quality of family law service, which was unique to my area at the time and still is now, as opposed to, an emotional connection to the firm or a price point offering. So I think that's how I started my firm, as a family law specialist only firm. And for about the first 5 years, that's all we did. We did nothing, and I referred out any ancillary work to the family law matters. But over time, that has adapted and changed, and now we do ancillary practices, but we're still predominantly a family law firm.
Was that hard at the beginning, referring out other work?
It was.
Was it tempting?
Yes,
take it on?
So tempting. I had a really good friend of mine who was a very successful business law firm owner, and she gave me, a few small tips at the very beginning, which made a big difference to me. And one of them was, don't take everything that walks through the door, just take what you're really good at. And one of the reasons is that your name in the area is built on that. So, if you're known for doing a really good job in a certain area and then you dabble in other areas and you don't do a very good job there, that actually affects your reputation. So building that quality reputation for me was about making sure I didn't do work I wasn't supremely confident in and I didn't have the ability to invest myself in when I knew my skill set was elsewhere. I also knew I could charge a lot more for family law work than I could for the other ancillary areas, such as conveyancing and transfers. My time was more valuable in family law than it was in other areas.
Would you say that, like, referring that work out immediately, did that help you build some good networks in the area with other firms?
It did, yeah. So I already had existing connections because I'd been working in the area for a long time. So for me, that was quite natural to say, look, I've got this person that I trust. I'm going to refer you to them. And they had worked with me before. So they would CC me into correspondence, let me know how things were traveling, come back to me. And I was always up to date with what was happening and kept abreast. It is challenging when you're opening to refer work out because you need every dollar that can come through the door. And it sounds like a silly decision to do that.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it is a bit heartbreaking with your first time your phone rings and it's not, first or second time, and it's not actually the work that you're very good at. That's heartbreaking to say, oh, sorry, we can't help you. And it's so tempting to take it because you need the money and you're starting a firm from scratch. Yeah. So what I would say is that building those networks also meant work came back in the other way. So whatever I sent out would also come back in spades. So my conveyancer that I sent to would send me family law settlements. And we all know that a single family law settlement is worth 10 conveyances at least financially. Yeah. So, I always saw it that way. For everything I send out, it will come back. And it did. It really did.
That's awesome. And What were your goals starting the business? Is it what, I mean, you said something before about quality. I don't know if that was kind of one of your goals, but what, you definitely set off with a pretty clear goal in mind.
Yeah. So when I started to now are two different things. It's morphed. When I first opened, I did what I was trying to do, what everyone is trying to do, which is better work-life balance. So the aim was personal as opposed to professional in some aspects. So my personal aim was to get a better work-life balance. I thought that having a firm would deliver that. Having control over my own diary, how wrong I was. And then from a professional perspective, my brand was the expertise in family law and being a specialist family law firm in an area that didn't have one. So my professional goals versus my personal goals were actually very different, but the firm met both of those. So it allowed me to professionally grow my profile and be known like a synonymous for that area of practice. And then my personal ambition, which was to have a better work-life balance and to be better off financially, to be quite frank, and you wouldn't start it otherwise.
Yeah.
And I did achieve the financial benefits of having my own firm, but I quickly learned that work-life balance is just as elusive in private, like in your own practice, as it is when you're working for somebody. In fact, it's probably harder to achieve because unlike a 9-to-5 job or a paid solicitor's job, you can't just go home and check out. The bottom line and the buck stops with you. So, in those first 2 years, I couldn't tell you, it was not an unusual week to work an 80 to 100 hour a week at the very beginning, but I poured myself into the business for several years and just intensively, the best way to explain it is farmed it. I intensively just worked solidly on the business. So I would work a full-time file load, and then I would spend at least equivalent to a day or two a week around that file load business development. And so that expands out. And then when you first start, you're your own trust account person, you're your own office account person, you're everything, you're doing your own SEO, you're doing your own socials, you're doing everything because you feel like you can't afford to get help from outside. So you're wearing so many hats and you're taking them on and you're off when you first start. It can be very overwhelming and scary when you really get down to it and you think, what have I done?
How did you, I feel like we're going to jump all over the place there. I think that is totally fine. How did you, I mean, it's funny because if I look at our own organisation with sales, I imagine it's hard to keep doing, you get busy and then you start doing biz dev, and I imagine then you do a roller coaster. How did you avoid the roller?
Still really? Now. Yes, we talk about it all the time at work here. We call it the ebb and the flow. So when we're in an ebb, it's time for business development and time to catch up and get on top of administrative stuff. And then the flow, which is the peak time, is just holding on tight while you're on that roller coaster and meeting your deadlines, basically. And I don't know anyone that's in a litigation practice that doesn't have the ebb and the flow, because you have no control over your diaries and your timelines. It's the nature of law. So that's a really good question, Jane. The answer is actually I never worked out how to master it, and I still don't know how. I'm getting much better at predicting it. I've worked out the times of years which are ebbs and which are flows for us, and what kind of events trigger, an uptake in family law clients and new retentions.
Like pandemic.
Yeah, like Christmases, school holidays, stuff like that. Following holidays is usually an uptake immediately. There's a busier period for a few weeks following a school holiday. Christmas triggers a lot of things for a lot of people. People are together, spending a lot of time having a few drinks, and then relationships break down. So we always get busy following triggering events. But so it's one of those things.
Sorry.
No, you go.
Are you cognizant of that, and so you put more effort into business development in other parts of the year then to top it up?
Yeah, so our predominantly slowest part of the year is the mid-year point, which is the financial year. So we usually are very busy in the first portion and the last quarter. People say that we're manic here all the time, but I don't know any difference. So I couldn't. We just function at this level. But the middle of the year seems to be when we have that ebb. So, the start of the year is busy, middle goes a bit down, end of year peaks back up again. And within that, we have our small movements as well. And so we usually run some extra advertising, promotions and things like that during that ebb period to grow branding. And so we usually have a 12-month marketing plan that attaches to that ebb and flow in practice.
You do, yeah. And in the early days, how did you quarantine your time to, I mean, obviously you're working a lot of hours, but how did you fit it all in?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I look back now and I wonder that myself, Jane. I was young, I didn't have a family, so I had time. If I were to do it now, how I would do it would be very different from how I did it then. I would actually structure time in my diary and I would set aside an afternoon a week to work on just business development. And I would say to my secretary, no phone calls. The problem with firms and any business actually is if you don't set aside time to work on your business, all you do is work in your business and there will not be development and growth. The lawyers get into this tricky spot where we're so busy that we don't actually stop and we look at how the business is tracking and what kind of work we're bringing in and whether or not we can utilize technology and streamline processes and make ourselves more profitable. Lawyers literally are hour for dollar, dollar for dollar. We can only bill what we do unless we utilize intellectual property and technology to actually speed those processes up. We're in a habit of seeing our value as billable units as opposed to what are things we can offer. If I can be in 4 places at once, why wouldn't I be in 4 places at once if there's a technology that allows me to do that or to share that information? You don't need to sit across from a client. So business development lets you stop and think about how am I going to be innovative? How am I going to offer something different to my clients, as well as how am I going to get my name out there? How will I make my connections? How will I generate my work? So it's not just business development. It's not just about generating work and being known, but it's also about how to make the most out of the hours that you've got in the day so that you can deliver the most quality to the most clients and make it profitable, really.
Yeah. No, that's awesome advice. And I'm going to ask this question because I'm worried that I'll forget otherwise. Why did you start taking on other practice areas and how did you make sure that it's profitable for you?
Yeah, really. So basically it got to a point where the amount of work in those ancillary areas was sufficient enough for me to hire somebody who was knowledgeable enough to do it. Right. So it was no longer a small portion of the practice. The offering was a substantial portion of the practice. So one of the transition issues with any kind of law firm, and anyone that's running one will tell you this, there's a tipping point in which you need to either choose to scale back your firm to maintain it at the number of employees or just yourself. So you have to start knocking back work, or you have to increase your workload to, I'm going to say, I have a rule, I don't know where it came from, but I call it 125% loading. So if I know I need a new lawyer or I've got someone in the pipeline, I think to myself, once I get to 125% loading, that means that I have at least a 50% loading that I can give to that new person coming on. So I build a practice for them before I transfer the practice over, and then I reduce my practice load. So essentially, let's just say 100% is 100 files. I would go to 125 files, bring somebody on, and then I would give them 50, and they would take 50, and then I would be back at 75% of practice load. So that's basically, that sounds very simplified, but that's how it mathematically works in my mind. I know it's not a formula that's set by anybody. It's just how I process that thought. So when the ancillary areas became sufficient enough that I was thinking, okay, I'm turning away 50, 60, 100 matters a year in those ancillary practices, it's time for me to look at expanding into those areas. I also made sure I had time to learn them properly too, because it's my practicing certificate and I am the supervising principal solicitor. So I actually did a heap of courses on lots of different things myself to get on top and abreast of it. And then I only hired senior lawyers who knew what they were doing when they came into those ancillary areas so that I could check and balance and we could be talking about it on a daily basis. And I also knew that everything was done properly and according to my level of expectation.
And so obviously you are good at tracking anything that comes in the door, even if you don't take it on?
Yeah, we do. Yes, I track all of that. So Smokeball is great now that it has all of those things in there. So it has all the lead generation. Yeah. And you can you can match all of that. I also have an external Excel spreadsheet I've kept from the beginning of the practice, which I'll continue to keep because it does track a little bit different data as well. So when something comes in, we do enter that into the external sheet, even if we knock it back from the very beginning, so that I know, as opposed to creating that lead and then saying that that lead didn't convert, I've still tracked it. And then we do business statistics every 3 to 6 months, where I then have a look at the series of what's come in, what type of work's come in, where it's come from, how many we lost, how many we retained, and how many we marked what's called not proceeding. And not proceeding for us means the lawyer's determined it's not appropriate for the firm, or we've referred it on. Yeah.
Okay. We should talk about that offline, not now, about what else you could do with leads.
Yes.
Track it better. But anyway, that's another.
Yeah, sorry. Better in the works. I've always done that from the day I opened. So Smokeball didn't even exist when I opened my practice. It was I think it only came in a few years after I opened my practice, when it was just for conveyancers, and I onboarded while it was only for conveyancers and used it for all my ancillary practice areas. So that Excel spreadsheet has existed from the very beginning of time of the firm, if that makes sense. And because I have that there and it's such rich data, I keep using it. Yeah.
But I think that's another good tip for people, is to, even if you don't take it on, track it from the beginning, so you see what's coming in the door and you know what. Otherwise, you're basing it on gut.
Yeah, do you know, I can't tell you how many people so I help people with starting their own law firms all the time. So I have lots of people I mentor, have no idea where their work is coming from and have no idea what type of lead generation leads to the highest conversion rates. People really struggle tracking those statistics. So, for example, really clear and easy one. I get one through Google and I get one through a networking referral, so a direct referral. I can guarantee you that your direct referral is so much more higher likely to retain you than a Google, and yet you spend so much money on Google and so little time on networking. The conversion rates for personal referrals are through the roof versus Google. So you always have to know where that's tracking for your business to then work out where to spend your dollars and put your time, because we don't have an infinite amount of time available or funds available for networking and advertising purposes. So, you know, if you've got a budget of $1,000 a month, which is a really tight budget. So if you've got $1,000 a month that you budgeted for advertising, you've got to make that dollar work hard to maximize your returns. Don't be going playing AdWord for cost per click conversions, because you're not guaranteed. Cost you, $600 a conversion. And if you're doing conveyancing matters, it's an absolute waste of money.
Yeah. That is a really good tip. I mean, I think you can spend a lot of money on Google and you really need to know what you're doing.
Sure do.
Yeah, convert.
Yeah, one of the things lots of people will talk to me about is, like, should I do Google AdWords or what, and I say to them, look, it depends. Do you want the quick turnaround or do you want the long, slow burn? Because organic ranking is king. If you can organically rank your site through SEO, that is the way to go on a long-term basis, is, investing money into that, because an organic ranking is so much better than a Google AdWord.
So when you say that, so do you do blog posts and like how are you building your organic ranking?
So lots of different things. So when I first started, so what I do now versus when I first started at Chalk and Cheese. So when it was just with me, which is what everybody's here for, really, to find out, I just really had a basic website with some nice images on it and enough information to make people want to click and connect with me.
Nice business card.
Yeah, and it was, when we talk about, I'm not sure if any people here have attended any of the recent webinars I've done for the Business Minded Lawyer for Smokeball, but the branding is really important. The connection and the way that you write on your website to connect with people, to make them feel like you're the right person for them, makes a really big difference. How you write to somebody who wants an aggressive lawyer who's going to stand up versus someone who wants a collaborative outcome are two different things, and your website portrays that in the way that you write your text. So I spend a lot of time actually crafting the copyright, and then actually doing all of the SEO in the background, my keywords, my metadata, all that kind of stuff. And then as I've grown, that's when I've expanded out into like having YouTube channels and videos and blogs and Facebook and social and all of that kind of stuff. But I just started with a website.
Yeah.
With 4 pages.
Okay, that's a good basic. I should switch slides. Actually, I want to ask one last question before we switch slides. when you brought in, so one thing that we see in our client base is that often people have, like they might get someone who starts doing conveyancing, but they're also doing a bit of something else that's time billed. And we're like, how can you judge if they're being effective or not? If you are doing some time billed stuff, some fixed fee work, is that something you ascribe to, or how do you work around that?
Look, and I think we've had this discussion before. So my firm is a mix of fixed fee and billables, which is really hard to track profitability per practitioner.
Yes.
My experience is you make less money fixed fee than you do billables, but that's because of the work we do. So it's different to a conveyance, which is just a fixed fee, and then and some you win and some you lose is the way I kind of, it works itself out in the wash. For me, and I know a lot of other practitioners in family law do not prescribe to this and they do fixed fee. I find a fixed fee arrangement is difficult to predict in family law because of the nature of litigation. And it's also difficult to track. If you fixed fee a family law matter and then you run time in the background, you'd be shocked at the disproportionate fixed fee versus what you actually spend on it. So it's not as though I'm all about profit, because I'm absolutely not, but I found that to be the most profitable from your lawyers and to make a firm healthy, for me, pro rata work is the best. But clients like the idea of a fixed fee. So if I can limit the scope of fixed fees to certain actions or things and then time record the residuals, that's actually what we do. We have a mixed form of billing. Does it work for everybody? No. Some people love the idea of fixed fee and never time recording and don't track that. They're just happy with the money that comes in the door. And other people don't do any fixed fee and only bill. But I feel like there's a halfway medium for that, in my opinion.
And so if you were starting a business today doing anything litigious, you'd just time bill to get started?
Yeah, I really would. Yeah, I really would. I think the idea of scoping it requires a level of expertise and knowledge of how much things are going to cost. And you don't get that until you've done 24 litigated matters. You're kind of looking into your crystal ball and you're saying, oh, how much do I think this is going to, take? And then scoping it is so hard. I've got a good friend who scopes her family litigation matters. And I actually said to her, like, how much time do you spend on a scope? And she's like, if it's a big matter, she'll spend a week scoping out a matter into a fixed fee. And then she's limiting to so many pages per affidavit, like this many font, 1.5 spacing, 17 pages is included in the scope, and anything over that and this and that. And I just think to myself, I'd rather just actually get in and do the work. Her clients love that she fixed fees, and that's her selling point, and that's her unique selling point. And I think that's perfect because there's a market for it. Me personally, I'd rather just get in there and bill it and give an estimate.
Yeah, got it. Okay, I'm going to jump slides so everyone's not just looking at this one slide the whole time as much as anything.
If anyone's got any questions, just pop them into the question on the chat box. I've got it open on the side and I'm happy to answer stuff as we go along. So please feel free to throw questions up as I'm going.
Perfect. Thanks for saying that. And also at the end, we'll leave a bit more time for hopefully there'll be some more that pop up. Okay, so focus. We've actually have touched on focus a lot, I think, already. And I think it's something that you were very good at from the beginning as well. But when we started fleshing out this discussion, you were talking about branding as part of your focus.
Yeah. So I guess the basics of starting the firm are like, how are you going to start it? Where are you going to open it? Are you going to be from home? Are you going to be in an office? Are you going to have staff from the beginning? Is it just going to be you? Is there intention to grow? Getting the basics right of where you see yourself in 5, 10, 15, 20 years is important, because from those basics flows the focus, which is the branding of how you do that. So what I would, like, if we go back, I know we're going back basics, but what I would say is, like, there's a lot of people who will say to me, all I want to do is just be me, and I just want to pay off my mortgage and be happy and work less. And then the person that says that to me would develop a completely different focus or branding for the firm than the person that says to me, I want to grow, I want to become a big name, I want to be synonymous for this. I want to eventually retire at the age of 30. I want to do this, I want to do that. I want to be flush with cash, whatever it is that they see in their future. So the way that your basics of why you're doing it and the principles behind that, and then looking at your focus on how you achieve those results are very, very different. So from like a branding perspective, I strongly recommend before anybody actually starts a firm that they have a really strong brand, that they've done their SWOT analysis, which hopefully all of you know about. You've niched your market, so you've worked out where the hole in the market is for your firm and what makes you different, because don't compete with everybody, be your own person and be your own firm. No point throwing your hat in the ring with all the big boys, because you're not going to be able to compete from the beginning with the big boys. So you need to find that space that that's empty, where the big boys don't exist. And then you target and niche that down.
And so for you, it was that differentiator of there wasn't a specialist family law firm in your area. Was that correct? That was kind of your guiding light?
Yeah, exactly. And to be quite frank with you, there was no females in the area, and there was no female firms in the area. I was the lone woman in my area, which was a very older male demographic out where I am in Western Sydney. Still to this day, I'm the only female firm out here. There isn't anyone in competition with us. Yeah. So it's a bit of a joke with all of the other owners of the big generalist firms now. They all, rib me up big time, and I give it back to them. But yeah, so when I started, it was just a woman in a female firm doing the best she can and providing a quality service that nobody else provided. So all my competitors were like, we do family law and criminal law and conveyancing and blah, 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 a one-stop shop. And they'd been here for, one of the firms has been here for 100 years, like really old established firms. And then so when I niched my firm, I come in as young, dynamic, moving, innovative, highly functioning use of technology, the opposite to what all my competitors offered. And there was that niche that was there. It took a long time for me to work out where I actually fell, but yeah, so that's how I found that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We have a question.
Yes. What do you look for and advise in hiring? Okay, so this is a really good question, Joshua. So there are two ways to look at this. At the very beginning, I hired a lot of juniors. And that was what I did when I first started, because the idea of hiring a senior was financially scary. But what I have learned is that juniors are keen to learn and they want to expand their knowledge base. But juniors do tend to move on quite quickly once they've got their skill set. So they'll cut their teeth at a small firm, they'll get their skill set, and then the big boys will offer so much more money, and they'll take that, which at that age I did too. So I cannot blame them for that. I think that's natural that you would follow the dollars, and then there's a kind of period in your life where you realize work-life balance and family is more important than the money, and then you usually take the step back and you rebalance yourself accordingly. So I kind of now hire in that period where people have decided, wait a second, I think life is more important than finances. And so I tend to, hire people who have children, who want that work-life balance, because I offer that flexibility and security. So Joshua, he says, it seems like a big problem for small firms. It really absolutely is. It is the vein of everybody's existence, is hiring juniors, skilling them, and then having them poached. They do come back though, can I tell you? I've had lots of juniors come back to me over the years.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great. It's a bit like a turntable. They come back 5 years later and they're like, oh, I should never have left. And I'm like, that's okay. You're welcome back.
To ethos and culture, I think there's something to be said in that, right?
Yeah. So I know my colleagues, most of them that have firms, also move away from juniors now. But I think that's also creating a problem on the other side, because juniors are now not given the opportunities that they used to. And I feel it's incumbent upon me to provide that. So I do provide PLT placements, 1 or 2 a year, and that's it. Because I find that it takes so much out of me, because I don't believe in bringing somebody on and throwing them in the deep end. I believe in actually teaching them properly. So I still do that as a form of, I guess, community service in some ways, because it costs me a lot more money than it's worth. So I tend to hire seniors. Hopefully that answers your question.
And there was kind of another bit of this question, like, common issues you see for someone hiring their first employee generally.
Okay. Yes. All right. So my advice to anyone hiring their first employee is hire someone really good who's really senior and knows what they're doing. And I'll tell you why. A senior walks in, from the moment they walk in the door, they bill and they make you money, and they will cost you nothing. Nothing. It is scary because it's a lot of money when you pay them, because you think that's coming out of my pocket. But what it does is it frees you up to generate more work and to do work of your own. A junior should never be your first employee hire, because they will require supervision, they will require mentorship, and they will require time that you don't have on top of what you're already doing. You cannot simply give them a whole task and expect them to complete it perfectly and to bill for that without supervision. So my advice always is, whoever you hire, be it a paralegal, which can I just say was my first hire, and I think it's the best person to hire, is like a senior paralegal with good drafting skills, good phone manner, good communication and customer service. Make sure that they know their stuff. So you can say to them, hey, I'm going to dictate an affidavit and I need you to write up the orders. So you're going, look, such and such wants to keep it. They're paying this person at 150. There's a super split for 22,000. You literally dictate that, and then you get your beautiful set of orders back. That's what you need. You need someone who's skilled, not someone who requires mentorship. Mentorship for juniors comes when you have capacity and time, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Great answers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump back. Focus. A business plan. Sounds like you had one. Did you have one from the beginning?
Yes.
You had a business plan?
Yes, I still do. Still now. And I do them every 12 months.
Every 12 months. Okay.
Yes. So I did a business plan with projections of where I wanted to be in 6 and 12 months and 24 months. My first one was 5 years, up to 5 years projection of where I wanted to be. To be honest with you, a business plan is more about, it's almost pie in the sky stuff in some ways, but it gives you goals and it makes you work to achieve those, and it keeps you on track. A business plan is not just about, profit. A business plan looks at what your vision is, what your ethos is, what you want to provide, how you're going to provide it. It works in with your marketing plan and your branding, and it also gives you direction. So it's stopping to consider your macro and micro environments in your business. So, what's happening within your small area, what's happening outside your area, and allows you to adapt. And so you should redo it every 12 months, because your environment, like, let's just look at COVID. The whole world turned around with COVID and their business environment completely changed. So from my perspective, that should be updated all the time, but you definitely need one when you start, even as painful as it might seem. Do one, get direction, get focus, so that when you're doing your branding, you're on target, and then your firm has the best chance of success from the very beginning.
Yeah. I mean, we do a similar thing ourselves, and it's funny because Smokeball was kind of really in an embryonic way started about 10 years ago now. So we're kind of looking back over the last 10 years and looking at some of our early plans, which are hilarious now. But what it really did from the very beginning for us, because what we do as a planning thing, where we actually go, where do we want to be 3 years out? Where do we want to be 1 year out? And where do we need to be in the next 3 months? So it kind of breaks down long-term goals into short-term manageable chunks of things that you should be doing. And we still find that process just as helpful today as we did when we really had no idea what we were doing 10 years ago. But those short-term chunks of things that are, making sure that you're not just, like you said, so in the business, I think are huge in the long term if you want to achieve whatever, like you said, whatever those goals are, whether they're to grow and the world over or whatever they are. Yeah.
So I had a very good friend who had a firm, and her aim was to pay off her mortgage and then retire. And she literally worked in her firm for 5 years, closed it, and retired. And so,
you're kidding?
No, for someone like
now.
Yes, I don't know what she does now, but I'm not quite sure. I think she still dabbles in family law, like she still does a little bit just to keep her skills up. But to me, someone like me, that's crazy talk. Like, how can you not be involved in the vibrant goings on? Like I couldn't imagine not being pushed and not having a million things. But that's what she wanted, and she achieved it. And I think that's amazing. That's more success than someone who has 30 employees and the firm is growing because she actually got what she wanted. It's equivalent to, so.
Totally.
What's your definition of success is the question, really.
That's right. And it's, that's kind of your guiding light, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Okay, ethos and culture. It's one of my favorite topics. What does that mean to you, or did it mean to you when you were starting your firm?
So at the beginning, it was a little bit important, but now it is extremely important. When I first started, because it was just me, I knew where I wanted to work, and I just thought I'm going to make sure I hire people that are my people. I always said, you know, my vibe attracts my tribe. I wanted to hire my people, and the ethos of the firm kind of morphed from that. Mine was like almost an organic, natural transformation for the ethos. So when we first started, I was like, I just want to make sure I do a really good job. That when people say, oh, go to Amanda Little, people are like, oh, she's amazing, she's really good at her job. And I just wanted to have a friendly environment where there's no difficulty, everyone is equal, there's equality, you know, there's not stages of senior lawyers, extra senior lawyers, and secretaries can't eat with lawyers, which I'd worked in firms like that, like the old school firms where there was real levels of structure, you know, and thou shall not meet in the middle. So that was really my ethos at the beginning, but now it's just so much more. I'm super passionate now about providing opportunities within the firm for women with children, flexible working arrangements, working from home, being able to go to school events, supporting dads, just supporting families. There's so many highly skilled people who are prohibited from working because of family commitments but still want to give. And that's kind of what I wanted to create. Plus, we have almost like a family dynamic here now. Everybody has each other's backs. From an internal ethos, we're so tight-knit and we really just enjoy each other. And, you know, as random as it sounds, you know, I'll say to everybody, I'm hiring a holiday house on the beach, who wants to come? And everyone will show up. Everyone will come for a weekend, not because they're forced to, because it's not expected, but because people actually enjoy each other. When everyone came back from COVID, all my other friends were complaining, people I know that have firms were complaining about people not wanting to come back. I mean, I didn't even tell my guys to come back. I turn up and there's an office full of people. I'm like, what is everybody doing here? And they're like, we missed each other. And I was like, well, there you go. Just goes to show that fostering that environment makes a really big difference to the culture. Smokeball's a lot like that, I feel. I don't work at Smokeball, but, you know, I kind of know everybody now. You know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think, yeah, that was actually, you know what, one of the, if you think of our initial business plan, one of the things at the very top of the list was create a place where we want to come to work every day. Because if you don't want to come to work, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? What is the point? You want to go to work and be miserable and be around cranky people? I don't want that. I want to be around people who are excited and want to have fun and are positive and doing great things.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, law is a tough job. Law is a really tough job. We have lots of people around here say if it wasn't for the people that worked here, we would have left law a long time ago, you know? So
yeah,
I think
you need to.
Yeah. Now, you know, what I was aiming for at the beginning and my definition of success when I started this 10 years ago and I had no family and it was just me against the world versus how I see it now are two different things. Like my success now is the fact that I support 15 families and there's food on the table because they come to work here every day and people love their job here. Like that in itself is success. You don't get better than that, you know, the satisfaction of having good people in an environment where people are happy and smile when they come in every day, you know. I think that for me that's the best part now.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, we try.
Okay, I'm going to jump.
Go.
I'm going to jump.
Is there any other questions anyone wanted to ask while we're going through this? I'll just watch the questions, so feel free to pop up any of you've got any.
Okay. Branding, future planning. This is another thing we talked about beforehand. It's everyone uses their name in their law firm.
Don't do it. Learn from me. So despite the fact, one of the things about me is I have an advertising degree as well. So despite the fact that I actually knew better, because originally my whole thing was branding around myself, which is how I thought I was breaking into my niche market. My advice to my beginning self would be do not use your name in the firm, because what happens is people become attached to you as a person and the brand becomes synonymous with you as a person as opposed to the firm. And you want to create that separation, especially if you have an intention of growing and becoming scalable. So for me, it's a big problem, and we're currently doing this long-term transition from my name over to ALA law. Eventually that's where we'll get, because people have naturally started calling us that. So we're like, well, if our customers are calling us that, let's start actually transitioning that branding image over. But it's about a 5-year plan to do it, because my SEO people tell me that the most common search term is Amanda Little to get the law firm, not ALA law or family lawyers or what have you. People look up my name because my name's attached to the brand. So from a scalability perspective, if you intend on opening multiple offices, having lots of different staff, and eventually stepping back from seeing clients, do not put your name in the firm.
It's another good one. I think it's a really good one that I could take away from today. And future planning, future proofing your business from a tech perspective. What do you wish you'd done at the beginning, or what are you glad that you did? I think that's really good.
Yeah, good question. So basically, I'm very tech, pro use of technology, and always have been. So you would know that, Jane, from many years of interaction with each other. So one of the things that I'm so grateful that I did, even way before COVID, was we were, paperless at the, before COVID. Everything was cloud-based before COVID, when the world went to crap, excuse the language, but when the world, we all, and all the other law firms were hemorrhaging, it was business as usual here. There was nothing changed except the fact that instead of my girls being on their seats here, they were on their seats at home. So I've always been a big believer in the use of technology. I do intakes via technology for all of our different, I build them myself. I know Smokeball's got some coming out, which I'm really keen to try when they start. But I've built all of my own intakes through third-party providers, and I've always done that. And I've got chatbots that I built that talk to clients on the website and provide information and do intakes and then send it through to reception. I use DocuSign technology. I used it before it was integrated with Smokeball. I use it now that it's integrated with Smokeball. I'm just a big believer, if there's something that makes your life easier and makes you more profitable, use it. One thing I will say, though, is this. My clients are a type of client that comes with a niche market. They're in a certain age group. So the majority of my clients are generally between 30 and 50 years of age, right? Which is that literate, computer literate generation.
Yeah.
The younger generation, you don't need to worry about, but I am within that computer literate generation. When we get the older clients, we do adapt how we do our intakes, because there's a certain age group that if you sent them a link to watch a video on YouTube of their expectations for initial consult, and then you sent them a link to complete their intake, they would be completely overwhelmed by that. So use technology according to the client, or attract the clients in that demographic that you like to utilize the technology that you're offering, so that you're hitting the right markets.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's interesting to me how, because I think about DocuSign, for example. I think for a law firm that is so important to help you convert business, because we just Smokeball retained a lawyer to get some contracts done or whatever, and they send me an email with a letter attached, and they're like, "Can you print it out?" I'm like, "I don't want to print. I do not print anything. Can you please do this another way?"
The conversion rates for us increased significantly when we started to DocuSign cost agreements. Just that alone made a huge difference about 4 years ago. We converted from pen and paper, wet signing, to DocuSign. And so we have a policy of cost agreements out within 24 hours of an initial consult. So we see a consult, we issue the cost agreement within 24 hours. People return them 48 hours later, money and trust. So now with Stripe integrated into Smokeball, we send a cost agreement with a DocuSign. We send them the link for payment. Boom, boom, boom. I have money and trust. I have a signed cost agreement within 24 hours. That's unheard of 10 years ago. You'd have to print it for the clients who didn't have a printer, call them, say it's here for you to come and sign. They'd sit in your foyer, they'd read it, they'd sign it. Then you'd have to get money out of them via FPOS, or they'd bring cash in and then someone would have to go bank it for you. So, the use of technology just in that, that one small example, you can just see how much work has been cut out of that administrative process.
Well, yeah, A, it's better for you from an administrative point of view, but B, most firms are not doing this. Most firms are not doing it. So it's a differentiator. You're like, yeah, yes, most firms are not doing this stuff.
Interesting. Okay, so for everyone that's thinking of starting a firm, absolutely use DocuSign to convert your clients. It's worth they charge you a small amount, but it's absolutely worth it because it's, you know what, and it's so prompt. When you see somebody and you send it to them within 24 hours and it's easy to use and they can do it on their phone, it's impressive. If these lawyers can turn this around in 24 hours, imagine what they can do for me. Then you send them the link to say you're going to communicate with me instantly at any time that you want, and upload your documents here and do it. Like, it's just mind blowing to people that we're not available. They don't actually know that we're not sitting there, but to them, we're available all the time. They have access to us. When they have that thought in the middle of the night, they get on the app and they write in, "Hey, Amanda, I just remembered this. Send it through to me. I start work at 9 o'clock in the morning, open it up. There's a message from my client." That kind of thing, it's great.
To me, it's a real indicator of the service you're going to get from the firm going forward.
Agreed.
And that's what you want, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's because the horror stories you hear about lawyers is they don't respond to me. So if you start off on the right foot, it's huge.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
So we also have when we're talking about future planning and you're talking about utilizing technology and just slightly off that, but when we talk about business development, one of the things we constantly go on about every year when I take my business, so we do biannual planning conferences. So the firm will go away for 48 hours and we'll just talk business and how we're going to improve customer service. That's our main one. We talk about the quality of our legal services is excellent. Where any firm falls down is usually customer service. Lawyers are very process driven. We're very black and white. We like to tick our boxes, get our job done. And a lot of us do struggle with that emotional connection with clients, acknowledging how a client feels and taking that time when we're so busy and we've got so much to do to actually just, hold space for a client, when they want to talk about how they're feeling or how emotional they are. I mean, we get to charge them for it, but we just seem to just not have the capacity to do that. So we always talk about that. And we talk about increasing customer satisfaction and client experience, not only by taking space and holding space for the clients, like the paralegals and secretaries doing that and finding the time for people, but just, an acknowledgement. If they send you a message, "Thank you so much. I've set aside some time to look at this on Tuesday and I'll come back to you after that." Setting expectations, letting them know that you've received it, not just ignoring the email. Like, you've looked at it and you're like, "Oh, I'll deal with that later." But they don't know that you've looked at it and thought, "I'll deal with that later." So I always just say, "Thanks so much. I've got some time to decide later this week. I'll be in contact then." And people write back, "Oh, thanks, Amanda." Stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
We are running out of time. We have 6 minutes to go. So if you have any questions, this is a great time to put them in a question box.
Please do.
In the meantime, put them in. More questions. I thought we could quickly, I'm just going to wait. Should we just wait?
Please send any questions that you have about anything. I'm happy to answer any questions that are burning on your mind in relation to starting a firm or scaling a firm or anything like that.
Okay, let's round out with a couple of minutes of do's and don'ts, trips and traps. So
okay.
We're going to leave everyone with one thing today not to do, what would it be?
Because there's just so many. I don't know what the key one thing is.
I like the door law. I mean, that's an Americanism that
it is.
I think I was telling you about it. Like, so it's in America, it's kind of like the Simpsons taxi driver lawyer. It's like door law, right? Anything that walks in the door, you take.
Yes. Well, don't be a door lawyer. Say no to work is my opinion. For me, do say no to work you're not qualified for, even though it looks like a good way to make money, because it actually affects your reputation in the firm because your skill set's not sufficient. Accepting that your skill set is not sufficient is sometimes a challenging prospect for lawyers, including myself, like suggesting I don't know how to do something. Amanda. So I would say definitely I agree with that. Do knock back work. Don't take work you're not, don't be a door lawyer. Also, I would say do spend money on people who are worth it. The best way for me to explain this is if you're pressed for time and your hourly rate, say $400 an hour, and you're spending 3 to 4 hours a week on your social media, that's $1,200 worth of billables, and you could pay somebody $250 or $300 a week to do it for you, and they're professional. So really consider the cost benefit analysis. So do hire people who know what they're doing and outsource work. Do that, because it makes a big difference to business. And also do pay people what they're worth. Don't be scared of a big wage, because a senior lawyer on a big wage will make you money instantly. A junior lawyer on a low wage will cost you money for at least 12 to 18 months, because they take your time plus their wage, plus, you know, you need to check all of their letters and everything like that. So do consider, especially for your first hire, someone who's properly skilled.
You talked about, when we were setting this up, you know, knowing your worth. I think that is another big thing.
It is, yeah. So I find lawyers tend to undervalue themselves, especially when they open a firm for the first time. They tend to set their rates really low. So when I say know your worth, what I'm trying to say is that don't underestimate the amount of work that it will take you to do something. Make sure your estimates are appropriate and appropriately price yourself. Now, I understand the markets are different depending on what area of law you practice in and where you practice. You know, in the city here, someone my level equivalent's $1,200 an hour versus me, and I'm $600 an hour. So still huge amounts of money, but, you know, chalk and cheese just by being 100 kilometres apart. Same skill set, just in a different demographic of what I can charge in my market. So when I say know your worth, don't devalue what you offer to get work from the beginning. Don't undercut yourself. You're better off also not offering free consults to get people in the door, because you're going to get a lot of door kickers who are just there for information and will not retain you. Don't offer free consults. People who are serious about their matter and serious about their family or whatever you do will pay to see you for your expertise, not because it's free. Your retention rates will be so low. So know your worth, don't offer free consults, and make sure you appropriately estimate. And don't underestimate so that you can get the work, because you'll only get shitty clients when they realize how much it's actually going to cost and it's far above the estimate that you gave them.
Awesome. Okay, let's round this out. So I'm going to jump over here. So if you are interested in learning more about Smokeball, it's the time of the QR code. You can use the QR code on screen to start a trial, which is actually just of the billing part of Smokeball. Or you can go to our website and call us and all that kind of fun stuff. And I think there's another slide. Let's see what's the end. If you would like any more information about Smokeball, or you'd like any more information, if you've got any more questions that you didn't ask and you wish you had asked, you can contact Smokeball. You can contact me, jane.oxley@smokeball.com, and I will endeavour to get the answers to you. And Amanda, thank you so much. That was just so great. I think it was really practical, insightful, and I think it will be very helpful for the people on the call today.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me too if anybody has any additional questions that they want to ask. Happy to answer anything. So you can look me up on the Law Society and find my direct email. So that's easy to do.
Perfect. Okay, well, thanks again, and we'll see you again at another Smokeball webinar.
All right, see you later, everyone. Thank you.